Okay, it's 11 o'clock, so good morning, everyone. I'm Shaniqua Butcher, one of the ESS advisors here at the College of Engineering. I want to welcome everyone who came over from our last session, and welcome to those who are just now joining us. If you would please send your questions via our Q&A about life as a Berkeley engineering student, and also if you see a question that you want an answer to, that somebody else has posed, definitely vote it up by clicking the thumbs up. It looks like you all already practiced at that. I see some being promoted already. I'm excited to be joined by three of our engineering student services peer advisors, Ahad, Christina, and Amanda. So let's hear a little bit about each of them, and we'll start with you, Amanda.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. I'm a fourth-year bioengineering major with a focus in biomechanics, and I'm from San Diego, California.
Thank you. Ahad, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Congrats on your admission to Berkeley, and go Bears. So as Shaniqua mentioned, I'm Ahad. I'm a fourth year majoring in electrical engineering and computer science and minoring in physics. I have a focus in robotics and control systems, and I'm from the Bay Area.
Awesome, thank you. Looks like we're having a bit of trouble with Christina, so I think we'll proceed with Amanda and Ahad, and when Christina can jump in. Oh, maybe here she comes.
So I want to try to open my video, it just doesn't work.
Okay.
I'll leave the meeting and try rejoining.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and pose our first question. And then if Christina can come back in and introduce herself, we'll do that. All right, so we have quite a few folks who would like to know. I'll pose this to you, Amanda. Do engineering students ever run into problems with course registration, for example, classes being filled up?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the way that Berkeley course registration works is that you have a phase 1 and a phase 2 for registration. So everyone goes through their phase 1 where you can add a certain number of classes before everyone else's phase 2 rolls around. So with this system, everyone's able to enroll in the core classes that they need during their phase 1, which ensures that you're able to get into those big lectures that you'll need in your first couple of years at Berkeley. And then when phase 2 rolls around, you can add the classes that fill up less quickly. So this is a really good system because you might not always get your like first choice lecture time. For example, the 8 a.m. lectures always fill up last because no one wants to wake up for that. But there's always enough lectures available for everyone to phase 1 then.
Great, thank you, Amanda. Okay, Ahad, our next hot question is, what are some tips or recommendations you may have in order to be successful in the College of Engineering as a freshman?
Thank you. Yeah, I can answer that. So definitely, Berkeley offers a lot of resources, especially targeted to freshmen in order to acclimatize to the campus life. One nice thing that a lot of freshman students like to take is what are called freshman seminars. So essentially, the College of Engineering offers these 1 to 2 unit seminars, which are taught by professors, and they're on specialty topics of interest. For example, in my freshman year, I took EE39, which is an electrical engineering focused seminar, where essentially we just got together 40 students, all freshmen and sophomores in engineering, and essentially we just broke apart electronics equipment every week. And it was a great bonding experience. I got to know a lot of the people from that class. I got to know the professor. And essentially those were bonds that I kept throughout my 4-year. Definitely take your first freshman year and make those connections and try out undergraduate student clubs or for example, music, if you did music in high school, and see, kind of find a community on campus, and then that'll really take you forward as you're exploring the other opportunities in your future years.
Great, thank you, Ahad. Okay, Amanda, can you answer how heavy a student's course load should be?
Yeah, so it's recommended that freshmen in their first semester should take a lighter course load. So the minimum for college engineering is 12 units. So that's about 3 big 4-unit courses. So we recommend this because you're really just trying to get acclimated to campus. So that's what I did my first semester here because I really wanted to find my communities on campus. So I ended up joining Cal Band, like the marching band, and trying out a couple of other clubs. So I really wanted to just take 3 main classes and kind of feel it out, see what workload worked for me. And then the next semester I was able to add a few more units and feel that out as well.
That's great advice. Thank you. So it looks like Christina was able to join us. So we'll take a moment just so she can introduce herself, and then we'll jump back into the questions. Good morning, Christina.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina. I'm a senior in mechanical engineering. My interests are mostly aerospace, combustion, and product development. And I'm from Greece. Yeah, and also I'll be applying to grad school. So I will be going to grad school. I already applied. So if you have questions about that, you can ask me.
All right, thank you, Christina. We'll go ahead and let you jump in and answer this next question. How competitive is the environment in the College of Engineering?
I would actually say it's not as competitive as you might think. It's a lot more collaborative. So while the classes are definitely curved and they are difficult, they're challenging classes, all the students help each other. I mean, I can give you one example. In one of my classes, all the students made a group chat on Facebook. So we answer all the questions together and we help each other. And, you know, if someone has a question and they don't want to go to the professor for some reason, then they can just ask at the group chat. So yeah, a lot more collaborative than you would think.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Okay, Ahad, you might take this next one. How is the engineering student lifestyle at Cal?
For sure, thanks. Let's see. So I guess, as Amanda mentioned earlier, the average course load is roughly 16 or so units. And at Berkeley, roughly one unit is about 2 to 3 hours of work. So that equates to, what is it, roughly 32 to 48 hours per week that you're more or less focusing on classes. That leaves a lot of extra time in the week for you to explore the other parts of what is available on campus. For example, in my first year, I was heavily involved with on-campus clubs. So I would spend maybe 10 hours a week just going off to UC Berkeley has this like off-campus facility called the Richmond Field Station. And essentially I was helping race electric vehicles all weekend long. Berkeley is also really close to San Francisco. So another common hobby is kind of taking the weekend and going out to see the gardens or Pier 39. So there is a lot of work, as expected of, I guess, a top engineering school. But Berkeley definitely takes efforts in order to open up opportunities. I've definitely had plenty of time for leisure and fun and spending time with my friends and on my hobbies. And I've still been able to enjoy this like dual engineering lifestyle.
All right, thank you, Ahad. This actually might be a question that's appropriate for one of the other ladies to answer if you care to. Anybody else want to add anything about lifestyle as a College of Engineering student?
Yeah, I can speak to it. So I actually joined Cal Band, which is the university's marching band, and before I even got to college. So we had like our whole training program before school even started. So that was like the first community that I really built at Cal. And we are required to go to all of the football games. Like it's like a whole day event, and we have practices almost every day of the week. But it was something that I really enjoyed. So I stuck with it, and I'm still part of it, even though I'm graduating this May. So it's been 4 years that I've been a part of this organization, and it's been a huge part of my college life. And I've still been able to excel in engineering, get all my classes done, do research, join other clubs. Like I'm a part of a couple engineering clubs as well. So there's definitely plenty of time for other clubs outside of engineering and inside of engineering if that's something you're interested in. And you'll definitely still have time for schoolwork as long as you manage your time well and really seek out the help you need for your classes.
Great, thank you, Amanda. Okay, so our next question, we'll pass it over to Christina. Christina, I'm assuming this question actually means deflation. The question is, how true is STEM grade deflation? It says delation, but I'm assuming it's deflation. And if you know better than me, then you can answer it for the other.
Yeah, I think they're talking about deflation because it's a big rumor. It is sort of true and sort of not true. So yes, because we're graded on a curve. So that means that only a certain percentage of people will get an A and a B and so on. So in that sense, deflation exists, and maybe A's are harder to hand out than at other universities, but that doesn't actually affect you in any way because ultimately, like your grades, you know, your standing in the university as compared to your other peers, but also more importantly, when you apply for a job, everybody knows that at Berkeley, an A is usually harder to get than it is at another school. So nobody will tell you, oh my gosh, you got a B. Like no one will ever say that. Same goes for grad school. your GPA is attached to the university you go to and doesn't get compared to all the other GPAs across the world. So you don't have to worry about the grade deflation.
Right. Thank you, Christina. Okay, this next question, I'm actually going to leave it open to who would like to grab this question based on who may have already done study abroad. The question is, when would be the best time to study abroad and what classes would you recommend taking? Have any of you done any study abroad? Amanda, okay, so we'll pass it over to Amanda.
Yeah, so I actually went the summer after my sophomore year. So I wanted to stay at Berkeley for the regular fall and spring for my 4 years here. So the summer program fit into my schedule perfectly. So I actually did the Global Internships program, which is a UC Berkeley program where they actually pair you with an internship in your field, and you also get to take classes at a university where you're studying. So I was able to go to Toronto, Canada, and I was studying and staying at the University of Toronto, and I was taking some really interesting classes about like the Canadian census and Canadian civilization. And I was also able to intern at the Toronto Rehab Hospital doing sleep apnea research part-time. So it was like half schoolwork and then half internship. And that was just about a 10-week program over the summer. There's definitely plenty of opportunity to study during the full semester if you'd like to. So your ESS advisor can work with you to see what classes would count. If you want to take your engineering classes abroad, it's definitely possible. A lot of people I know like to get their humanities requirements out of the way abroad because they're possibly more interesting than classes that you would take at Berkeley, and you can count a lot of classes as those humanities requirements, but you can definitely also take your engineering requirements there as well, as long as you work with your ESS advisor. And they can also make sure that even if you take a fall or spring study abroad, you'll definitely still be able to graduate when you'd like.
Awesome, thank you. It sounds like you had a great experience. Okay, Ahad, when do we pick courses and how do we go about picking them?
For sure. So as Amanda mentioned earlier, Berkeley has a kind of 2 or kind of 3-phase course enrollment staging. So for a new freshman, you'll start to get the details of how to enroll for phase 1, I believe, late May or early June, kind of at the beginning of summer. So I recommend taking a look at what are the courses available, what Berkeley offers, kind of the traditional 4-year plan for a student entering as a freshman or a transfer. So see what classes are available, pick your top choices. Essentially how it'll work is create a draft of your first schedule. You'll send it over to your ESS advisor via the system that they send you, and the ESS advisor will send you feedback on your schedule. So that's a really great opportunity for you to see, is this a reasonable schedule? And how should I pick what I select for phase 1 versus phase 2? They'll give you advice on kind of what are the top classes, on what fills up faster, or what's okay to leave later. So yeah, the system is quite well scheduled. So you'll be able to get into your first semester classes, usually no problem. And then you can kind of decide from there if there are any fun classes like the freshman seminars that I was talking about earlier that you also want to throw into the mix.
Great. Thank you, Ahad. Christina, what's something that you wish you knew before you became a Cal engineer?
Oh, that's such a good question. I wish that I knew what I really liked, first of all, because it takes a while to figure out what you're really interested in. And yeah, it took me, like, I would say almost the 4 full years, the full 4 years of college to really understand what I actually want to do in my future. So it would have been super cool if I knew that from before. But also something that I've learned at college is also just how to be independent, how to study properly, how to study effectively. And, you know, it's not necessarily a good thing to spend your whole day studying. Sometimes what's better is to spend fewer hours but actually study more effectively. So that's something that I had to learn just by coming here and, you know, getting to work. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Christina. Okay, Amanda, let's see here. How accessible are professors when you're a freshman student?
Yeah, I would say they're accessible as you want them to be. So every professor is going to have their own office hours for their students to come, and that means any student in the class can attend these hours. So it's really up to you to reach out to the professors to get the help you need and to ask them the questions that you want to ask them. So they're accessible as you make them. And every professor I've known, even from my big freshman year lecture classes, if you send them an email asking to meet up, if you can't make their office hours, they'll always make an appointment for you. So it's really, the experience is really what you make of it. So if you really want to get to know a professor, if they're doing interesting research, or you have a lot of class-related questions that your grad student can't answer, you're definitely going to be able to reach them.
Okay, thank you. Speaking of research, Ahad, what have your experiences with internships and research been like? How many internships did you participate in, and for how long did you do research?
For sure. So, I mean, this is all personally speaking, but I've done 2 internships during my time at Berkeley, and I participated in undergraduate research for 3 out of my 4 years here. Internship, it was through a program on campus, done through the Sitarja Center of Entrepreneurship and Technology. So essentially, I was paired with a startup. I was working on drones for a semester. It was super awesome. Essentially, that kind of gave me the experience I needed for my second internship, which I did through Handshake, which is a program offered through the Career Center at Berkeley. Essentially, it's it's more like a job platform where companies specifically looking for Berkeley students can post job openings, and it really allows for like that one-on-one connection. The company I was doing the internship at in particular was essentially founded by a bunch of Berkeley graduate students, and they were looking for Berkeley engineers who had these specific skill sets, and that was an opportunity that was only available through Handshake. And far as talking about the research side, so I mentioned I did 3 years of undergraduate research. My first semester, or the first semester I did research, I did it I got that position through the mailing list from the Engineering Student Services Center. Essentially, a professor posted a listing. We're looking for an undergraduate student with this skill set. And I emailed him and he scheduled an interview right away. I then got my next position through URAP, which is a position offered by it's like a research listing posted by the Office of Undergraduate Research at Berkeley. So that was in device physics, essentially. I did that for a year. Then I talked to, for my final position, a class professor. I really enjoyed the class, so I said, can I participate in your research? And I did that for 1.5 years. And that's what I'm doing today. So I would say I never had problems per se on where to go looking for research or where to go looking for internships. Berkeley makes all of that available to you. And it's really kind of taking advantage of the resources you have available in order to reach out actively and make those connections.
Great. Thank you. This seems like a question that they might want to hear from another one of our panelists, if either Christina or Amanda also has an internship or a research experience that they'd like to speak to.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. My first 2 summers, similar to Ahad, I did industry experiences. So I went for an internship. The first year I went to Lufthansa and I worked on the service of planes because I'm kind of interested in aerospace. And that was a really fun experience. And then in my second year, so in sophomore year summer, I worked at a steel manufacturing company. So I could just see what a factory is more like and just learn a little bit more about metals because that's super cool. And then in my junior year, from the start of junior year, I joined a research lab. The reason I joined it is just because I happened to walk into that lab one day and I was taking a class with that professor. And I thought that it was very interesting. They had NASA stickers and, you know, I'm into that stuff. So I asked the professor if I could just go talk to him in his office hours. And then I had read a few of his papers so that I had a little bit of background information on what he does. And I said, you know, I just want to talk to you about your research. So I wasn't really looking to join necessarily. I was just curious. And then he said, we had a good conversation and he just said, you know, I think we have some openings. I would love to take you in. So it's pretty easy for me to join just through conversation. And I've been in that lab for 2 years. And last summer, the same professor who collaborates with a lab in Paris, so he sent me in Paris so I could do like a study abroad research experience thing. And that was really fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I will stay in the same lab for my PhD next year.
Okay, great. Thank you, Christina. It sounds like a lot of fun. All right, Amanda, what does a typical weekly schedule look like?
That's really up to you, honestly. Like, you can make whatever you'd like out of your time here at Berkeley. So I can just talk a little bit about what I do. So in the semesters where I've taken like a heavier course load, say maybe like 3 math and science classes and then 1 humanities class, was like pretty typical schedule for an engineer. For those classes, so the lectures are about an hour long or an hour and a half long, and you usually have breaks in between the lectures. So I try not to take 8 a.m. So when I get lucky, my classes maybe start like 10 a.m. So you might have lecture for like an hour. Then I usually try to give myself like an hour lunch break. So it's not like high school where you're in class like 8 to 3:30. You can like really choose your times and choose your breaks. So if you like taking class at night, you can take all your classes like 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. if that's like your chosen lecture time. But for me, I try to get all my lectures done by like 3:30 because I would have marching band practice every fall starting at 5. So we'd have practice from 5 to 6:30 Monday through Thursday. So then after that, I would usually go get dinner with my marching band friends. And then if I'm in any project classes or I'm working with other students, we generally have our project meetings in the evenings. So after I like eat with my marching band friends, I would generally go back on campus, say to the library or something if it's a busy week and we have deliverables due. And I would go work with my project teams for maybe a couple hours before I head back home or to my dorm. So that would be my typical day, I'd say.
Busy, but some fun in there as well, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, this next question, as our EECS major, we'll pose this to you. What's the difference between CSE and ECE in the EECS department?
For sure. Effectively, no difference. Essentially, that's kind of how the electrical engineering department, pretty much specifically for logistical purposes, differentiates if students are more interested in the electrical engineering side or the computer science side of EECS. That said, the reason we have the EECS department in the first place is because there is a huge interconnection between electrical engineering and computer science. Your graduation requirements won't change regardless of the track you're on, and you'll still get the full exposure of taking these lower division or kind of freshman, sophomore oriented electrical engineering classes. You'll learn how to implement kind of software on hardware and design hardware for software. And you'll get to see both sides of the track. CSE versus EC is pretty much just a logistical division, unlike kind of which side of the ballot do you align yourself more closely with. Some students don't find a particular leaning. For example, embedded systems, I know a couple of people where they do 50% hardware, 50% software. So it's really hard to decide at the end of the day.
All right, thank you. Christina, Amanda spoke to this a little bit in just kind of the weekly schedule, what that might look like. Can you somewhat quantify how many hours per week do students normally spend on academics versus non-academics?
Yeah, for sure. So as Amanda said, it's entirely up to you and it's up to how you schedule every semester. What I did at the beginning of college, so in my freshman year, I front loaded, meaning that I took a lot of units in my freshman year. I was taking 18 units every semester, same with sophomore year. So those times I spent a lot of hours studying every week because my classes were not just lecture, and then I had discussion section as well, but they also often had labs. So that would be, I don't even know, 40 to 50 hours studying a week maybe, but that includes class time. But then as I moved on to junior and senior year, because I had front loaded, I had less classes to take. So now I have a lot of time to rest, and that means that I have more time to devote to other things that I'm interested in. For example, I'm in a club, a rocketry club. So we compete every year. We just make rockets from scratch so that we can go to competition. And that takes up a ton of my time entirely because I love it and I choose to spend so much time on that club. I spend probably 20 hours a week doing that. And then just, I don't know, maybe another 3 hours a week hanging out with friends, or sometimes more, depending on the week. Sometimes it can be even 10 hours. And then, I don't know, you always have those times where you find yourself just laying in bed, wasting your time on YouTube. Yeah.
All right, I would just add that Christina's experience in her first couple of years that she spoke to is probably atypical. It's
Yeah,
probably
it
more
is.
normal for later years to be more in the 12, 15 units per semester schedule and have a little bit more balance of non-academics and academics. But certainly there are the certain schedules that will show up a little bit differently. Okay.
Yeah, I chose that from the beginning. You don't have to do that.
All right, thanks, Christina. Amanda, this question is perfect for you. What opportunities and connections do Berkeley Bioengineers have?
Okay, so first of all, I love Bioe, so I could talk about this major all day. It's actually one of my favorite communities on campus, and I'd say that all the bioengineers are actually very close. So in all of my upper div Bioe classes that I'm taking now, I would say everyone's name in the class, even the classes that are like 80 people big. So there's a couple of Bioe clubs on campus that are really popular. So I'm part of the Bioengineering Honor Society, and that kind of sounds like it's like hard to get into, but they're really accepting of pretty much everyone who's really interested in Bioe and interested into excelling in their academics. So it's like a simple application process, but everyone in the club is super close. We have social events almost every week. We have my favorite part of it is actually the professional networking part of it. So we have a whole committee that just hosts resume workshops, LinkedIn workshops, lunches with professors, lab tours, and then they help you get internships. We have info sessions from companies, all of this. And we actually host our own Bioe Career Connections Fair every semester. So we actually get a bunch of Bay Area Bioe companies through the Honor Society to come onto campus, where any student of Berkeley can actually come to the career fair and talk to these companies. If you're not interested in that honor society, we also have the Biomedical Engineering Society, and that club is open to everyone, no application process at all, and they have meetings every week, a ton of social events, also a ton of info sessions, and it's just like a really good way to get involved in the Bioe community because they have a lot of internal stuff as well, like they have their own mentorship program if you want to be a mentor or get mentored, and everything like that. So those are a couple of the big clubs that are really there to support bioengineers.
All right, great, thank you. I think we'll circle back to Ahmad for this. How does one become successful at Berkeley?
For sure. Let's see. It's really a combination of things, just like all the things we've been talking about. Berkeley isn't just a course university. It's one of the top engineering research universities. So definitely take your first year, get to know people, like Amanda said. It's really powerful to be able to go into a class and recognize faces. And that's something that you can start to build up in your first year. I think it was mentioned during the ESS panel that, or the ESS advisor Q&A, that during your first, for example, CS61A, take that opportunity to find a project team that you really get along with, or take lab classes that you enjoy and that you find people with similar interests. Like Amanda said, take the opportunity to participate in on-campus clubs and find that community that you can start to kind of continue as you pursue going forward. I found, for example, project ideas through just talking with my friends who are taking different classes. And essentially that developed into like a research paper. And it's really just this dynamic environment at Berkeley where like definitely take the classes that interest you and go for the internship opportunities, the research opportunities, the professional development opportunities, and but definitely do it with the community that you identify with and feel at home in. And I guess at the end of the day, so long as you have that, you'll probably find your time at Berkeley successful, regardless of whether the path you end up taking is the path you thought you would take at first. Like I never thought I would be working on the research I am now for robotics when I first came to Berkeley. It was something that came to me as I pursued these opportunities and got to know people.
All right. So speaking of community, Christina, can you speak to what sort of engineering social events there are for engineering students to get to know each other and form support networks?
Yeah, so the biggest event that we have is called Engineers Week. It's in the spring semester, And it's really fun. It's basically this week where you have activities every single day geared towards engineers. Anything from I think we had a dance event once where you dance and then you drink boba, and that was really fun. And we have the engineers ball, which is one of my favorites. You get to dress up, and it's kind of like going to prom, except more low-key, so you don't have to dress up too much. But we have food. We had mac and cheese, and it was delicious, and music, and you get to bring all your friends. And I met so many people in my freshman year at engineers ball, so that was really great. And the nice thing about it is because it brings everyone together. I was a freshman, but I got to meet people from all different class standings, and then I got to see what they did. You know, I added them on Facebook, so then I could see what they did after graduating, and I could message them and ask them for advice. You know, like, how did you get a job, or how did you go to grad school, all of that stuff. And then besides all those events, you can always have events through your club. Most engineers, I would say, are involved in some club, whether it be an engineering related club or not. But all of those clubs do have social events, and, you know, just naturally by being in a team, you're bound to get to meet a ton of people. Yeah. There's a lot of social opportunities.
Can we add on to that question with another one? Christina, we'll stay with you. Is it hard to get into engineering clubs?
It depends on the club, but generally not. It should not be hard. There are some clubs that do interviews, or they might just have an application. But usually the application is mostly just so that you can show that you're actually interested in it, because a lot of people sometimes join clubs, but then after a semester they leave, which ends up being really difficult for the leadership of the club to, you know, they can't assign you work, or they can't teach you many things if they know that if you're just going to leave after a semester. So bottom line is that it's not hard to get into clubs. Most clubs do not require any sort of application, and if they do, it's purely so that you can show that you're actually interested in it.
Okay, thank you.
I can also add on to that, actually, for the social events part. So I think adding on to Christina's point about clubs, pretty much almost all of the majors in engineering at Berkeley have their own sort of student organization tied with a national organization within the department. For example, I'm the director, or one of the directors, of the IEEE student branch at Berkeley, which is the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science student branch of the IEEE national organization. I know there are similar organizations for civil engineering, mechanical engineering, nuclear engineering, and these can be a nice first place to start out if you're looking for like a community that you can find these social events and social bonds with. Because usually, like Christina mentioned, they have pretty much open applications. So as long as like you're interested in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, or so on, you can just join in and participate in these conversations. So that can be a nice place to get started if you're not sure necessarily like which project team to get started in, or so on.
All right, thanks for that. Our next question, I'm going to ask each of you actually to answer this, because I think it's really an important question. Why did you choose Berkeley?
Yeah, I can start because I haven't talked. So yeah, to give a bit of background, I was actually a waitlisted student at the College of Engineering. So when decisions came out, I put myself on the waitlist, and I had committed actually to Arizona State University, which is where my sister had gone, and they had given me some scholarships, stuff like that. So once I got into Berkeley off of the waitlist, I actually came up for a quick visit from San Diego, and I actually met with some people in Cal Band. So they gave me a little tour, because I had like my recruiter from Cal Band and some other students like from my instrument section. And so we all just got to talking, and they were kind of telling me about Berkeley and what Cal Band culture is like, and how everyone's super like a tight-knit community. And basically right when you get here, you just feel kind of at home. And then I looked at some of the engineering facilities, and I was just kind of blown away by the scale of like the research being done and the caliber of these programs, and just kind of seeing that with my own eyes, I decided like I have to like rescind my ASU admission and like come to Berkeley, because I just knew that this was a community I wanted to be a part of. And I knew with the rankings and then what I was seeing with the research being done here that I needed to be a part of this. And I'm not gonna lie, location also played a big part in it. So I love the Bay Area, and the opportunities to meet with companies here after college is huge. And also just the things to do in Berkeley, and like San Francisco's a 30-minute subway ride away. Like that just kind of blew me away. So it just kind of is like the perfect culmination of things.
Thank you. Christina, you want to go next?
Yeah, for sure. So my story is a little unique, I would say. So coming from Greece, from Europe, I was pretty set on actually studying in the UK. And the reason for that is largely because it's close to home, and also because tuition is cheaper for European citizens. So yes, I was technically supposed to go there, but I really, really wanted to go to the US. And specifically, I really wanted to see California. I had never been to the US before. So I told my parents that, and they said, we cannot really support you in that unless you get into Berkeley, because it is the best school in the country and the best school in California for sure. And basically that's the only school that we will allow you to go to if you go to the US. So I did not think I would get in, and I was pretty crushed, but I ended up getting waitlisted, and then eventually I got in, and my whole family was laughing and crying in the dinner table at the same time, because my parents were like, oh God, the tuition fees, but oh my God, we're so proud of her. So that's how I came here. And like Amanda, I had also accepted my offer at a university in England, and then I had to turn it down to come here.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so, I mean, ditto to everything that Amanda and Christina said about loving the environment here. I guess I'll give a different spin on like which universities I was considering and why I picked Berkeley among them. So, I mean, for me, probably my top choices were Berkeley, UCLA, Carnegie Mellon, and I was waitlisted at Stanford. So kind of choosing between those, I guess Stanford, I'm a Bay Area local, so I had in-resident tuition, so kind of Stanford and Carnegie Mellon, which are private universities, got kicked out for financial reasons. So then I guess the choice was really Berkeley versus UCLA. I visited both schools and I got talked a lot with the professors there. So for me, it was very much a research or like a focus interest. I had always been kind of interested in robotics, but I wasn't sure if that was what I necessarily wanted to do. I can say that UCLA's electrical engineering department, where I was admitted, it's amazing for like very certain applications. Like their circuitry division is amazing. But I was talking, as far as like robotics goes, Berkeley has this huge program where they have tons of professors. They're hiring a ton of faculty in these areas. UCLA has a much smaller program, although it's still expanding. So I guess just talking to them, I was like, I can really get excited by all of the stuff going on here at Berkeley. UCLA, I can see that it's growing, but it's not necessarily at the same point yet. And this is kind of where the rankings started to differentiate themselves for me, that like they're both top ranked universities. And ultimately it's like, I mean, you won't go wrong choosing either university. I can say that for sure. It's really just the feel of the place. I definitely attended UC Berkeley's, well, the event that this is supposed to replace, the Cal Day. And I just love the energy and enthusiasm on campus. So that really pushed the decision forward for me, and I never looked back.
All right, great insight from all of you, and great to hear 2 waitlist success stories. That's amazing. Amanda, you spoke about the 30-minute BART ride over to San Francisco. We have a question about how Berkeley engineering students engage with San Francisco and Silicon Valley.
Yeah, so like every question I answer, it's really up to you how you want to engage with San Francisco. So basically, when I was a freshman, I had like a big group of friends, and we would go to San Francisco maybe like once a month and just like kind of explore. So there's a lot of parks and stuff. There's so much to do. There's some beaches and stuff, and you can just get around by bus. So it's like pretty cheap, and it's like a pretty cheap excursion. And you get to see like this famous city and see all about it. And I been to San Francisco like once in my childhood, and I loved it. So I really wanted to like explore it like as an adult and a college student with my friends. So that was kind of my relationship with it, like maybe my first couple of years of college. And then I started looking into like company info sessions and doing stuff like that. So I actually I've like been to a couple companies around Silicon Valley. They're just like small biotech startups, but they came to campus, and they actually, some of these companies, they like bring just like a bus, and then they just like bus over like 50 bio kids that are interested in visiting the company for a day. And it's not even like, oh, you have to take a job here. It's like, oh, do you want to tour this company for like a day that you have like only a few classes that you can maybe miss? And then you get to just like see this company that's like right here in the Bay Area, and it's like an hour bus ride away. So that's kind of a really cool thing about being in the Bay Area that you couldn't get somewhere else where the company isn't located. And I know that a lot of the CS companies, especially in Silicon Valley, they have a ton of these like tours and info sessions where they'll take students. And then if you are interested in working for these companies, you'll have an on-site interview for like internships and stuff. And those are super easy because you can actually go see the site where you're going to work and talk with your manager, like someone who's going to be your manager for that summer in person, rather than doing like a telephone interview. And that was super helpful because I took my internship in a Bay Area company, and I was actually able to see the facility, meet my manager, meet my team face to face before I committed to that internship. So that's like something really good about the location. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Christina, what would you say about difficulty of courses and maintaining a high GPA?
Interesting. I would say that, first of all, your GPA should not define you. And I think that a lot of students struggle with that. I know I definitely struggled with that a lot, just thinking that that number somehow defined my entire existence and my future prospects. And that's absolutely not true. But besides that, classes are challenging, and that's because they're supposed to be challenging, because it would be really boring if they weren't. And for that reason, though, we have a ton of resources to help you. In my freshman year, I struggled a little bit with my math class. I was taking Math 1B. And after my first lecture, that was the day when I was like, okay, this is going to be a very tough class. And I realized that there's a resource called the Student Learning Center. And basically that is, it's this big building where they have a ton of tutors, and you can take either you just go and sit on a table and a tutor will come and help you out, or they have this other cool program where you can take an adjunct class through the Student Learning Center. So after you go to your regular math lecture, then you go to your adjunct lecture, which is a much smaller setting. It's like 20 students, and you have a teacher there who will teach you everything again and make sure that you really understood it and give you extra homework. So that's what I did for Math 1B. And because of that, I ended up doing really well in the class, and I really enjoyed it. And in the coming semester, I ended up tutoring Math 1B at the same location at the Student Learning Center. Besides that, there's a ton of other tutoring services. In Bechtel, which is the engineering building, we have the Center for Academic and Engineering Excellence. And I love going there because it's just like a study space there where they have tutors in a similar manner, where there's just tables and you sit down and you can find a tutor for your class. They tutor basically every single engineering class you could need help with. And they're open at all business hours and also in the evenings until I think 9 p.m. So that's really great. There's always help for you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. All right, let's see. We'll go back to facilities here. Somebody has a question. We'll ask Amanda. How are the facilities, libraries, buildings, labs, etc.?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that when I took that tour, I was kind of in shock. So I can speak a lot to the Bio department. So the Bio building is called Stanley Hall, and it's actually one of the really new buildings on campus. And it's just filled with like a bunch of Bio labs. So there's cell and tissue labs, there's other bio-related labs, and it's also just a huge building with like a multi-layered atrium, and it just has open tables for any student to come and study. So there's plenty of study spaces like this on campus. So engineering itself has the tutoring center that Christina was talking about. We also have a big lounge where it's just a bunch of open tables. Any student can come and study, and it's a talking environment, so it's a great place to collaborate with your classmates. Our engineering library underneath that lounge is actually also a talking library. So if you like loud study, and that's where I tend to meet up with my project groups. And you can also rent out rooms in all of the libraries pretty easily. So you can rent every week if you so choose. And these are like anywhere from like 4 to 10 people rooms, and you can rent them for yourself if you have like a job interview or something, or you can rent them for your project teams if you want to sit in a room and not hear the outside noise of the other libraries. And then we also have our huge silent library main stack. So this is a 3-story library that goes underground, and that's where most of the UC Berkeley library's books are held. And this is like a really, really quiet, peaceful study space if that's what you're interested in. If you really need that quiet to study, that's a great place to do it. I personally like to study in louder environments, and I actually really like studying in cafes and stuff like that. So we also have a lot of on-campus cafes that are really nice to study in. They also have really good coffee if that's something you're interested in. So they're also a great place to study and just hang out with friends as well. So I would say there's definitely plenty of study space. The libraries are very accessible. So we have, I believe for my tour guide days, we have 27 libraries on campus. So there's definitely not a shortage of places to study or places to find books or anything like that.
All right, thank you. Okay, Ahad, how is well, we spoke about kind of the Berkeley unit workload, but are there times that you feel overloaded? Are you feeling overloaded most of the year, most of the academic year?
Sure, I can answer that. So definitely it comes and goes. So kind of how our semester at Berkeley is structured is that you would take roughly 8 weeks of classes, or the class would start out with like 8 weeks. You would get to know what the material's like. Then you would have a midterm. Then really another like 5 or so weeks, then another midterm, and then just a couple final lectures until the semester ends. So semesters at Berkeley are roughly 16 weeks. So you kind of get that sequence of classes, midterm, final. And since a lot of classes generally follow that structure, sometimes, depending on the classes you pick, you get a couple of midterms that happen in the same week. That can definitely be, you would have to spend more time during that week, the week before, to study for those midterms. Sometimes towards the end of the semester, especially when you get into upper division classes, you start taking project-oriented classes. So these are classes where they may forego the final exam and instead ask you to complete a project for the class. For example, one of the classes I took, EECS 106A, which is the Introduction to Robotics series. Essentially, we didn't have a final exam. Everybody in the class just spent the last month and a half working on final projects related to robotics, the class material. So sometimes if you get lots of projects and take lots of project classes, that last month can feel like high workload. But really, it comes and goes. Those class sections in particular, generally, you get to have that kind of work-life balance that we've been talking about all this time. You get to spend the weekend going to San Francisco, spending time with your friends, doing your hobbies, doing club work. And then you would just like take a week and a half off. You would say, okay, I'm going to study for my midterms. I'm going to ace them, or try to. And then once that's done, you'll get that next class period to spend time on your hobbies again. So it's really all of these ups and downs.
All right, so we're coming to the end of our time here. We're going to answer one more question. Christina, you can take this one. Someone's heard that Berkeley Engineering is not ABET accredited. Is the university in the process of becoming accredited? How much weight should we put on this factor?
I might need someone else to weigh in on this just because I'm not entirely sure if my knowledge is correct, but I believe that accreditation comes by major and not by the entire college. And I know for sure that mechanical engineering is definitely ABET accredited, and I'm pretty sure that we do accredit every single one of our majors. And the reason I'm saying this is because I was in a meeting recently where we're trying to start a new major for aerospace, and we had a serious conversation about whether we're going to accredit, or like about how we need to structure it such that it does get accredited. But yeah, if someone can weigh in on that.
Yeah, so actually BioE is no longer ABET accredited, and they did that actually as a choice by the BioE department, and that's just because there's really no need for BioE itself to be accredited. So mechanical engineering, it kind of makes sense for it to be ABET accredited, but BioE, there's really no need. Companies aren't looking for ABET accredited bioengineers, and neither are grad schools. So I was able to get a job, and there was never any mention of ABET accreditation in terms of bioengineering. And my job is actually pretty mechanical engineering focused because I've taken a lot of mechanical engineering classes, but they still never mentioned ABET accreditation or really cared about it. So that's been my experience.
Similar for EECS, actually. It, I think, was ABET accredited up till 2019. Then ABET kind of released this new course guideline for what they expect out of an ABET accredited class, and Berkeley EECS was essentially responded with, we have our own idea of what an engineering student should do. It was much more project heavy. It kind of gave more flexibility to what students could do in their time at campus. And similar to what Amanda said, EECS doesn't necessarily need to be ABET accredited in its particular discipline. So we still follow most of the guidelines, but like unofficially, we just have a couple differences. So.
Okay, so we are out of time, unfortunately, but thank you so much to Ahad, Christina, and Amanda for giving us their time and insight today. Question answered today. You can email our peer advisors at esspeeradvisors@berkeley.edu, or visit our website, engineering.berkeley.edu/Cal Week 2020, where we have lots of great information about resources, student organizations, and favorite campus spots. Our peer advisors are actually conducting small breakouts on Google Hangouts tomorrow, Sunday, April 19th at 4 p.m. You can visit the peer with your major or your interest and have a more in-depth conversation with them then. But until then, be well, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I will say that if you tuned in late, we will have the session posted later this week on that website. Okay? Thank you all for joining us. Go Bears.